Hello, how are you? I hope you're good and welcome back to the Magical Readathon. We are coming back for our August semester, August Equinox, despite the fact that it very much is once again scorching here. We're just gonna ignore that. Of course, if you're new, everyone is welcome to Magical Readathon. If you don't know what it is about, I will link some videos down below, including the how to start the Magical Readathon step-by-step video where we can create a character together and you can join us, no matter if you've done the April round or not. But with that being said, I know a lot of you are returning, so welcome back and let's get into it. As you know, second semester, autumn semester, autumn equinox, is always just a little bit harder than the first one. We challenge ourselves even further and push our boundaries and see just how much we can read in a given month. Last semester we have altogether beat the previous record of the amount of books and amount of pages read in April month compared to the last April, which means that we all reap the reward of starting 3 days earlier if we so wish to. You don't have to. If you want to start on the 1st of August and just have like a neat month, you can. But if you also want to start on the 29th of July and get a little bit ahead of the whole game, you also can. Since it is the second semester, you are just continuing in the career that you have picked in this first semester. In our callings sheet, you will find, let's say that you're an abjurer, you'll find a column here that tells you what you need to study for this semester, which is the autumn one. And these are the subjects that you'll need, as well as the grades. So you'll see that in this one you'd need O in inscription, Q in spells and incantations, and Q in conjuration, which means you'd need to read 5 books for that particular one, but just go to the guidebook, see which one you need and how many books that is. And that's the only and the biggest difference between the first semester and the second semester. So, as I said, because we have grades in the second, or like levels of qualification in the second semester, it does amp up a little bit. It's supposed to be a bit more challenging. So let's get challenged. Before we get into the prompts, I would like to introduce you to our next professor. And the next class we will be exploring a little bit further, and that is Demonology. This is our Demonology professor. They have traveled here from the Shadow Realm, where they have kind of swapped places with the previous, very much human Demonology professor who has let the curiosity take the better of themselves. I don't know how they are faring. But I do know that our current professor, in exchange for teaching and taking this position of the previous professor, they were granted safe passage and safe stay in this realm to do and to explore whatever they desire. They're very extravagant. They find people of LD a little silly goofy. Obviously, their personality has slightly different standards. They are a near eternal being compared to the lifespans, even the ones that are higher than your human, like an elf or Skymorn. That is still just a blip in time for them. However, throughout the years, they have learned a lot about the people of Eldia and their ways, and some things are hilarious and some other things are just fascinating or confusing. They have very little time for silly mistakes or silly questions. This is not one of the classes where you are told that ask any question, there are no stupid questions. For them, there are. People are known to be kicked out of the Demonology class if they are slacking. However, the professor also finds it very hard to follow the rules and stick to the regulations and whatnot, so if you are on like a more experimental side of things, with your character being quite untamed, let's say, this might be a good class for you to take as an extra if you don't already have it on your syllabus. The professor can really come across as snobby and entitled, very dark academia coded, which can come with its funsies and challenges. Speaking of challenges, we do have a specific demonology challenge that you can do whether or not you're taking demonology class, similarly to our long quest to alchemy. However, this one is in a different format, and again, similarly to the last semester where we had the alchemy ASMR room, I am hoping to be able to give you the Demonology classroom to put on the background if you fancy as well. It's still in production, but I'm hoping it makes it. So, we're exploring Demonology. There's a lot of fun lore behind the scenes. I don't know how much I'm going to be talking about it, how much you're interested in it, but we have a lot. But let's get to the most important part of the video, which is the prompts. And there's a lot of them, so I think we should get cracking because we have 14 subjects and each subject has 3 grades. So I'm not gonna rush through these, but I'm not gonna linger on ones that I do think are fairly self-explanatory. I'm just gonna read them to you. If you do have any questions, please leave them down below. I or someone else who knows the answer will answer. Feel free to answer others as well if you do think you know the answer. It's all good. I have them right here, and let's get started. So to remind you, the first grade is O for ordinary, then we have Q for qualified, and D for distinguished. The only thing to mention here is that you cannot get a distinguished if you don't have ordinary or qualified. That being said, it is completely up to you in which order you read it. So if you need a distinguished, you can read them out of order, as long as you're sure that by the end of the readathon month, you will be done. Otherwise, if you finish and you don't have ordinary or qualified, that distinguished that you've read the book for does not count. So it's a bit of a risk assessment on your end, up to you. For alchemy, we're continuing in the transmutation shenanigans. So for O, we're learning how to turn stone to copper, and the prompt is to read a first book in a series. For Q, we are turning copper to silver, and that is to continue a series. It could be a second, third, or fourth, as long as it's not the first or the last book, it counts. And for distinguished is silver to gold, which is to finish a series. Hopefully that's gonna incentivize you to cross off some of the series on your list. If it's a trilogy and you need all 3 grades, this could be a perfect setup. I'm just saying. For animal studies, we are having an introduction to domestic creatures, which is a pet pick. The way this works is that you can either write it on a piece of paper and throw the piece of paper out for your cat to pick one, or lay down a bunch of books and treats on top of the books on the floor and let your pet pick whichever treat first and whatever book is underneath, and that's the one you're reading. If you do not have pets, I will be making a very short Instagram story, which I will then save it to my highlights, where I throw 4 pieces of paper with like 1, 2, 3, or 4 written on them, and then Momo or Zeus will pick one. So if you assign a value to 4 books, then they can pick it for you. Maybe I'll do some fun Instagram stories where I ask you to submit the books and then I do them with the cats, like specifically for your titles. Whichever way is fine. And if you can't be bothered, you can just use a random number generator instead. For Q, we have a dragon chicken hatching, which is to read a book by a debut author, or read a book that's, you know, the first book the author is releasing, so a debut book. And for distinguished is a bicorn wolf care, which is just kind of like a tall, dire wolf with 2 horns. And for this is to read this book in 2 days. If that is not something that you think you can achieve, adjust the amount of days. All of the prompts are only subject to your abilities and circumstances. If you think you need something altered, please feel free to alter. This is all just for fun. Everything will still count as long as you're having fun and as long as you find this motivating. Otherwise, it beats the point. No hard policing here, whatever you think is suitable. Moving on to Art of Illusion. We have Levitation Spell, which is to read a book without touching the floor or ground. So if you're sitting on the sofa, legs up. If you're reading outside on a bench or something, just basically floor is lava is the prompt in reality for this one. For Q, we are learning to change our voices with voice altering spells, and for this the prompt is audiobook. Again, if you do not listen to audiobooks and don't want to try or don't work for you, feel free to alter to whatever your heart desires or whatever fits. And for distinguished is disguise skills for emergencies. Emergencies being where you cannot have any magic available to you, and that is to read a book with no magic. That can be a contemporary, that can be a non-fiction, anything that just does not have magic, which basically would be an emergency, because how sad. Moving on to astronomy. Devante is one of the favorite subjects. I don't even know if she takes it actually, but it's a favorite. For ordinary, we are learning a moon song ritual, which is, and don't cheat on this one, whenever you're planning your TBR, go onto your Spotify or another platform of music listening of your choice, check what was the last song you played, and then look at the title of the last song that you played, and then pick a word from that title. It could be a long title or it could be just a word, in which case that's a bit trickier. And then pick a book with the same word in the title. Any word. If the song is called I See Green Grass, you can pick green, you can pick grass, you can pick the word see. It just has to be in the title of the book that you pick as well. For qualified, we're studying lunar alignment, which is to read from an already finished series. And for distinguished, the blood moon is a red cover. Once again, to specify, the cover does not have to be a single red cover color. It can just be, the majority of it is red, you know, there's red elements everywhere. If you see it from far away, the most prominent color is red. Conjuration, we are still meddling with some spirits and ghosts, same as the first semester. So for ordinary, we are brushing up on our ghostly etiquette because you do not want to appear rude to your ghost. And the prompt is to read a court or a royal book. A lot of Regency books, I think, would fit into this, or anything with courts or kingdoms. For Q, we have spirit communications, book inspired or set in a different culture or country than yours. For distinguished, we're learning how to actually release the spirits, and it's called free spirit. And the prompt for that is to read an independent or self-published book. Loads of them on Kindle Unlimited, so hopefully this is not going to be too tricky. Moving on to Demonology, our star of the show, I guess, for the semester. Introduction to Low-Level Demons is for ordinary, and for that the prompt is to read the first book you see on an Instagram, Goodreads, or any other app that you follow book events on. Open the app, see what book pops up. If you've not read it, read it. If you have read it but wouldn't mind rereading it, that can also count. But if you read it and don't want to reread it, just scroll until you find one that you have not. May the odds be ever in your favor. What are the chances it's going to be fourth wing? For qualified, we're actually summoning implings. It's going to be a big theme later. The prompt is book with a magical creature. Any creature will do. And for distinguished, it's controlling said impling. And the prompt is to put a few books on a poll on Twitter, thread. Do threads even have polls? I don't know. Instagram, and just let other people decide. Or Discord. We have a Discord. If you want to put it there, you also can. Moving on to elemental studies. The element we're studying this semester is Earth. And for the first prompt, it's to read a book with word Earth in the title. Qualified is Boulder Stance. Honorary prompt that comes up every year, I think. And it's to read a book that is over 500 pages. For D, we are actually learning to control lava snakes, which I think is very exciting. The prompt for that is to have a snake on the cover. You probably will find it on older YA books because we had the whole like YA snake stage, but I'm sure more recent ones too. All right, spells and incantations, friends. For outstanding, we have Charm Short Trip, which is a nifty little charm placed upon a person if they're going on a long trip and really hate it. So to feel like it's shorter. I really would like that to be a real thing. And for this is to read a manga, comic, or a graphic novel. For qualified, we have Incantation Black Flame, which is to read a book with a black cover or with a flame on the cover as well, whichever you prefer. And for distinguished is Dome of Silence, and the prompt is to read a book in complete silence, or as close as you can get to that. Turning the page and moving on to Artificary. You guys are still with me? Good, good. Obviously, this is going to be linked down in our G Drive as well. For ease, you don't need to write it down as you're watching, but is jewel crafting. This is a gemstone in the name of the book, like jade. Plenty of fantasies with jade in the title. Amethyst, if you really don't like fantasy, because a lot of these books I think will be leaning towards fantasy, you can also have jade as a name for the author. So maybe there's a contemporary book written by a person named Jade. There you go. Counts too. For qualified, we are learning to make travel kits, and the prompt is to read an adventure book. For distinguished, it's pet aids. Imagine little robotic prosthetic legs or any other dark vision devices for pets, which I think is so cute just to think about. And the prompt is to pet on a cover. Anything that would constitute a pet, a cat, dog, but not something you would call an exotic pet, because that just means animal in general, doesn't it? So a stereotypical, somewhat stereotypical pet. Moving on to inscription, we're learning Glyph of Tidy. If only, that would be fantastic. In the spirit of tidying, the prompt is to pick a book from your end of the year TBR, meaning that this is a pile of books you want to read before the end of the year. Qualified is words and shields, and the prompt is shield on the cover or the word shield in the title. Distinguished is advanced penmanship, and this is the opposite of the debut book, which is to read a book that is by an author who's already released the book, so not a debut book. Moving on to lore, we are learning of the tale of the guide, and I love this prompt. It is a bookseller's recommendation. You can go and walk up to a person who's selling books in a bookstore and ask for their personal recommendation if you let them know what you like. If the thought of doing that makes you want to throw up, that's also very valid. Luckily, most of the bookstores will have little notes of booksellers recommend scattered around the bookstore, which I think it will offer a little scavenger hunt aspect to the prompts, and I think it's fun. If you can't or don't want to leave your house, you can maybe ask someone online who is a bookseller. I know we have a massive communities, and I'm sure some people do work in a bookstore or are librarians or something like that, so you can also ask for recommendations there. And I know it says booksellers, but librarians would still count as well, I say. Qualified is cursed cloaks, and the prompt is any type of clothing on the cover. Yes, it can be on a person, but if you find one that's without a person, that's just like extra points. Not really, because there's 2 points, but just like an extra little gold star for you. Distinguish is the Underworld 101. The prompt is to read a horror book. Onyx and Divination, third to last. Almost there. Not quite, but almost. Introduction to Tarot. And for this, I want you to use the random tarot generator, which I will link down in the description below. It will look something like this. Then you click on said card and it will give... Oh, I clicked twice. And it'll give you a card. And once you get the card, there are so many symbols there. So we can see castles, for example, here, a throne, a crown, sphinxes, wings, just basically so many symbols, and I'm sure on every single card. So the prompt or your task is to pick a symbol from the card. It still has to be on the card, but I'm hoping it's not going to be too difficult because, I mean, there's a lot of symbols in there. And then pick a book that has that symbol on the cover. For qualified, reading the future, the prompt is to read a book set in the future. Distinguished, we are learning about omens, lilies, and this is to have lily on the cover or word lily in the title or author's name once again. Restoration, for the ordinary level, we are learning a spell to induce or means to induce sleep, and the prompt is to start a book before bed. For qualified, enchanted scroll mending, and the prompt is one of the oldest books on your TBR. For qualified, we are learning to relocate pain, and the prompt for that is to read a book in a different spot every time you pick it up. So maybe you started on the sofa, the next time you have to read it somewhere else, maybe on a different sofa. Wild. And distinguished level, we're studying memory tests, and the prompt for this is to use a random letter generator and then pick a book that starts with said letter. And lastly, we have shape-shifting. So formation fangs, read a book with vampires. For qualified, formation feathers, random color generator, and then match the cover to the color that you got. And lastly, inanimate objects, chair, as in like turning into inanimate objects. And the prompt is chair on the cover. Not quite sure if this is gonna be hard or not. I guess we'll see. But that is our prompts for this semester. I hope they will be fun. Some of them are obviously repeats. I don't think at this point that I can come up with every single one that's new and still doable. Again, if anything is a bit too tricky, make sure to ask people for advice, suggestions. We're gonna talk about some more tricky prompts later on for suggestions on Twitter, maybe Threads, I don't know. Should we move to Threads? I'm gonna maybe put a poll somewhere. I don't know. Okay, so you know how last semester, we had this big quest that you can do throughout, like anytime. You can still be doing it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have a deadline. And it was all about an alchemy professor getting in a little bit of trouble and asking you for some help. And it was on G Drive, and it had a lot of folders for you to basically pick your own adventure. I think it was really fun. It sounds like you guys really enjoyed it. But you did also ask for a little bit of a variety of different types of activities, because this is quite a big task, and it is quite like, and I agree, it is a lot to take on, especially in August where we already have a lot to read. So to mix it up, I think in August, what we're going to try and start adding on is the little qualifications and opportunities. I actually named it supplementary qualifications and opportunities. It's going to be a little addition to print out. You can add it to your callings file if you wish to at the very end. To start off, I've added 4 opportunities or qualifications that are available to you if you're a student in Orilium as little quirks and little announcements, let's say, somewhere. A lot of these were suggestions by my patrons, which I am very thankful for, because my brain juice sometimes does run a bit low. so unsurprisingly, we start off with dragon riding license. So you'll see that there's a little banner on each side. It will let you know whether it's a qualification, which is something you'll hold all the time, or if it's an opportunity, meaning that it is most likely some sort of part or full-time job opportunity for you to either do alongside your studies for your character or in between the semesters. So it'll really just depend on the financial situation, on the priorities or the wishes or the character that you created. So as you can see, there's a little bit to read about every entry, as well as requirements for them. So I will say that each qualification or opportunity requires you to read something, but then also to do something. So I'm not going to read the actual entries on what these things are. I think I'm going to leave that up to you. But I will read the requirements. So for the dragon riding license, the requirements are to read 2 books with dragons and to watch a movie or a show with a dragon. If you do pick these on top of your career requirements, I would still probably try to do it within this month, but if you can't, I don't think that anything bad will happen if you do it outside of that limit as well. So I'd say it's kind of 50-50. It's kind of, I'm gonna leave it up to you. I'm not gonna make a hard rule about this. You want to complete it in August? Great. You want to do it at your own time? Also great. So the next bit we have is opportunity, which is an apothecary keeper job. For this, the requirements are to read 2 books with plans on the cover and to also find, document, aka take some photos, and share at least 5 different flowers on your socials. Anywhere, Instagram, somewhere in the ether. You can post it on our Discord as well. I'd love to see it. It's just gonna be whole pages full of flowers. I'm not gonna even complain. Next, we of course have a bog cataloger, which requires you to read a book by the water, like a lake or ocean or sea, or if that's not feasible, a book that has a body of water on the cover, as well as watch an animal documentary. And lastly, we have a sandship engineer certification, which is a qualification. And the requirements for that are read 2 books with a desert setting and also to doodle a ship, and optional also to share it online. I would love to see those designs. I think it would be so cool. So these are kind of like what we had in the side quest, but in a little bit of a different, more permanent, add into your character type of way additions. So that's, whoops, new thing number 1. New thing number 2, and also the last new thing, really, is this sheet. I actually printed it, but I don't have a colorful printer, so I'm just gonna slap it here because I think it's more impressive that way. We have this sheet, which is straight from one of our books at the Demonology studies, from the Summoning Charts book. I know this has silly little fonts, and all of the things are always gonna have transcripts on the G drive as well if you cannot read it. There's a little bit of information about implings themselves, as well as this contraption. So, what is this challenge? Well, we are very clearly summoning an impling, which are a little low-level shadow demon type of creature. So, you know imps and their tricksy little ways and the tricksy little appearances. Well, this is like that, but cuter and smaller. Imagine a more fluffier cat, mixed with an imp type of shadowy creature that just kind of likes hanging around, but is also a bit tricky and something that kind of runs into the shadows in whatever room you're staying, and then jumps onto your back and just mimics you in the shadows. They're kind of that kind of energy. So, in order to actually summon said impling, you will need to note these blue dots around this document. These are the energy points you need to hit while casting this summoning ritual. In order to do that, you need these dots to connect. So basically, we're playing connect the dots. Now there are 6 reading prompts here, but don't panic, you don't actually need to read 6 books for this. You can double up, triple up, sixtuple up on these prompts. You can pick one book that is perfect and fits all of these prompts and be done with it. Or you can have 2, or you can have 3 books that connect these circles to one another. The key point is that they have to connect. I think it's pretty simple if you have a book that just fills all of the prompts, and obviously you read it and then you summon your impling, which, by the way, will be an option to pick from one of the 3 types of implings, with hopefully very cute and adorable illustrations from Logan, similarly to your quest reward as well, to add to your character folder and to, you know, motivate you, because cute, silly things help at least me. So let me go through the points and the actual prompts for this. One of them is a book has to be between 400 to 450 pages. One has to have 1 letter appearing twice. And this is quite precise, so it can be more than twice. So if you have a title, it can be any letter, however. So hopefully that makes it a bit easier. So maybe you have a book titled Afterlife or something, and that has 2 E's, right? So that would count. The next prompt is that it's released this or last year, so 2023 or 2022. Then it has to have some blue on the cover. It doesn't have to be the main color, it just has to exist. Any type of shade, but just has to be a little bit of blue on the cover. You have to start it at night, would be an easy prompt to fulfill. And it has to be a book from an author you have read before. Okay, so I thought I will try and explain with showing some books as well, just as examples, because I think it could be a little bit complicated if I don't explain it properly. So I thought I'll show you some examples. Please ignore my nails. I ran out of cuticle oil and apparently I don't know how to take care of myself without it. So first, as I mentioned, these are our... I don't have a colored printer, so we're just gonna blob it like this. Energy points, yay! And I think I was saying that you need to connect the dots, but I think the easier way to look at it is that you need the links in between them. You need to collect the links. You take a book you want to read, and then you go through the prompts to see if it ticks them. So, is it between 400 and 450 pages? Yes. So even though it does tick this particular one, because it doesn't connect to any other point, it means nothing. So if your book only fulfills 1 prompt, it's pretty much useless to us. So we go on to the next one. 1 letter appears twice. So that's perfect. We have this link. So we can connect it. Let's ignore how messy this is. It's all fine. Released this or last year? Yes, it was released this year. So we now connect with this as well. Now we have blue on the cover, any amount. And indeed, we have some blue. So score for that one too. And here's you screaming. We connect to that one also. Now you don't need to connect to this one because you have another point in between. So that's also something to clarify, I guess. This one's start at night. That one's kind of an automatic connector because that's within your control. So let's say that we have, and then this point is read from before author. I have read the Murderbot series, at least the first one. So I can connect to that one also, which leaves us with 1 missing link, which actually is not missing because it is a read from before author and it also fulfills this prompt. So that means we also have this, and lo and behold, this is the book that, spoiler alert I guess, fulfills every prompt, and you immediately finish the quest or challenge with a single read, which is fantastic if that's what you're looking for. So that's obviously an easy situation. So let's complicate stuff. This is a book you want to read. 5 Survive. Is it between 400 and 450 pages? No, it is not. Just a little bit shy of that. So we are already missing this one. 1 letter appears twice, however, 2 eyes. So we do have this one. So now for this to be an activated node, I guess, we need to obviously connect it to something. We can connect it to this because we've already established we do not have enough pages. So is it released this year or last? It is. It was released in the pages here, 2022. So we have ourselves a link. Continuing on, blue on the cover. I'd say there is definitely some blue tones here. So we can connect to that. Read at night is your automatic behavioral prompt. We can connect to this. Read from before author. I have read Good Girl's Guide to Murder, so I can also connect that. However, now we are left with this one pesky chain that, well, sorry, two chains that we cannot connect because we don't have enough pages. So what we need now is a book that fulfills either this link or this link. So to fill in this link, we need a book that we have already read from that author, as well as a book that's this amount long. For example, this. I have read Caraval, so it already fulfills this. It does have enough pages for us, so we have collected this link right here, and one letter appears twice. I have two L's, so we can also connect this. Let's take it further. So let's say you primarily want to read God Killer, a short book. So already can't activate this one. One letter appears twice. We do have two L's, so we can activate this. We don't have this link because it doesn't fulfill the page prompt. Released this or last year? Yes, it is. It was released oh, this year. I thought it was last year. So we have ourselves one link. Blue on the cover, we don't really have. This is where this particular chain breaks because we cannot connect this and we cannot connect this. However, do we have any more chains that could be still fulfilled through this book? Obviously not this one because we don't have the blue, but I could start this at night if I wanted to. And if I have read from this author before, I could maybe connect and gain this chain. However, I have not. So I can't really do that, and I can't get that one either. The way that I would approach this is I would pick a link. So for example, this one that we're missing, released this year or last year and blue on the cover. So then I would go onto my shelves and look for a book that has been, you know, a fairly recent release and also has blue cover. And I want to read, obviously. So this is The Secret Society of Regular Witches, released last year. And obviously this edition is very blue, so we gain this link. Obviously I can start reading it at night. That's kind of like a cheat prompt for us. It is not an author I have read anything from before. I will read something from them again because I did actually really like this book, but I cannot continue with this link. And unfortunately, it is also too short for us to connect anything to that either. So now I'm primarily looking for a book that I read from that author before, and it is also, let's say, in that page count. So I was able to find Cytonic, which is book 3 in Skyward trilogy. So obviously it was not a trilogy, but so obviously I've read from this author for multiple occasions. It is, in fact, within our page range, and I can also equally start it at night. So I'm connecting this bit. I am connecting this bit. There's no letter that appears twice in the title. So now I am left with one missing link, which is a book between 400 and 450 pages, and one letter appears twice. And after a while of looking, I have found this, which obviously has two H's and also has just the right amount of pages. We then close the last link. Anyway, I hope this helps. I'll explain it and hopefully it will make sense. I just thought it would be fun and a little bit new and a little bit not done before, at least by me. I've not checked, maybe someone has done it before, but I think it would be fun and adds a little bit of a layer of like having those connections kind of connect. Good language skills, okay. So next thing is that I know I promised a restock of the bookmarks, of the foil bookmarks, the class bookmarks at some point before this semester starts. It's not gonna happen. I'm sorry, life has thrown stuff at me from left and right and above and beyond. So it's just simply not gonna happen. The only thing that I do have available, I guess, it's that Redbubble shop. So if you do want some swag for Orilium, you can get, you know, sweaters and sweatshirts and hoodies that look like university ones. I do love them. I will definitely release them later on. It's just not gonna happen in time for this one, so I'm not even releasing them for them to just arrive after the fact. But they will be available next year. Fingers crossed. Then, of course, we will have our regular stuff like the book submission forms where we track what we read, how much we read, and track the pages and the book number. We have our socials, which is a Discord, link down below. I don't know what I'm doing with Twitter versus Threads. We'll have our Instagram challenge. We will have our all-nighter at some point. I think that's it. I hope this sounds fun. Hopefully that ASMR room also brewing. Yeah, covered most of the things, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you're excited to make your TBR. I'm very excited to see all of the flower photos and then ship doodles and just in general hang out with you again. Thank you so much. Stay awesome, stay kind, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!